Patrick Mahomes didn't mince words at Chiefs training camp. Last year's offense was abnormal, and the deep ball, the one that built Kansas City's dynasty, is coming back. That's a big promise from a two-time Super Bowl MVP whose thumbprint defines this offense, and it carries both opportunity and risk. If Mahomes and the Chiefs truly restore vertical aggression in 2025, opponents will need new answers. If they fail, they could repeat last season's fatal limitation, a top-heavy offense that lacked consistent, explosive plays when it mattered most. The context matters. Mahomes' 2024 numbers were still elite by many measures, but they dipped in the one area that defines modern quarterback dominance: depth and explosiveness. He averaged just 6.8 yards per pass attempt, the lowest mark of his career, and his longest completion was only 54 yards. Those aren't flukes so much as symptoms. Fewer designed vertical shots, a reliance on quick reads and checkdowns, and an offense that often neutralized its own ceiling. That approach delivered wins and another Super Bowl appearance, but it also handed the Eagles a blueprint in the title game. Pressure up the middle, bracket the short to intermediate windows, and dare Kansas City to beat you downfield. They couldn't. Why did the offense shrink? A few linked factors. Injuries and age diminished some traditional vertical threats. Travis Kelce's workload and separation profile changed. The offensive line was more porous than usual at times, and opposing defenses increasingly dared the Chiefs to take shots over the top. Andy Reid's schematic creativity masked those limitations through efficiency and leverage plays. But when a defense can commit more resources to pressuring the pocket and taking away intermediate lanes, you need the field-stretching element back. Mahomes acknowledging that change is needed suggests the staff is preparing to recalibrate play calling, schematic emphasis, and perhaps personnel usage. How does Kansas City bring the deep passing game back without becoming one-dimensional or turnover-prone? First, it's about structure. More play action and rollouts that buy Mahomes time and change the target window. Play action sets with RPO counters and misdirection can freeze linebackers and create more one-on-one opportunities downfield. Second, it's about protection and pre-snap alignment, slide protections, chip and release schemes, and quicker game plans for handling blitz-heavy fronts. Third, it's about intent. Design more routes that push safeties deep. 4 verts, double posts, seam concepts combined with vertical clears, and let Mahomes attack tighter windows when the coverage dictates. Fourth, personnel usage matters, getting faster separation from perimeter weapons and deploying motion or bunch concepts to manufacture mismatches. Personnel-wise, the Chiefs have options. Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown offer downfield speed. Xavier Worthy's deep threat juice remains tantalizing if healthy. Juju Smith-Schuster and other slot options give Mahomes safe intermediate outlets while the deep concepts develop. How Andy Reid balances Kelce's usage will be crucial. He remains the chain mover and security blanket, but freeing him occasionally with seam or seam post combinations can compensate for a more vertical approach without surrendering short to intermediate efficiency. There are measurable signs to watch early in the season to determine whether the shift is real. Percentage of pass attempts, 20-plus yards downfield, average depth of target, A.T, big play rate, explosive pass rate, yards per attempt, and pressures allowed per dropback. If the Chiefs' A.T climbs and Mahomes' YPA moves back toward his historical range while the big play rate rises, that will be a concrete signal the offense is reopening the field. Conversely, if pressures spike and turnover-worthy attempts increase without an uptick in successful explosives, the Chiefs risk trading stability for volatility. Risk management will be key. The deep game inherently increases variance. Good outcomes can erase deficits, bad outcomes can swing momentum away. This is where Mahomes' decision-making and Andy Reid's play calling must synchronize. Pick the right moments, use motion and personnel to free up one-on-ones and keep the run game credible so defenses can't simply replace corners with linebackers in coverage. Finally, this promise is also a leadership play. Mahomes talking publicly about restoring verticality sets a tone in camp. It signals confidence, demands accountability from receivers and the line, and frames the season's narrative. It forces opponents to plan differently in August and September, perhaps restoring the very design that made Kansas City deadly for years. Bottom line, The Chiefs have the schematic mind and the quarterback to bring back the deep ball, but it requires health, refined protection, disciplined shot selection, and a willingness to accept short-term variance for long-term upside. If Mahomes and Reed execute that calculus well, Kansas City won't just be back to pushing the ball downfield. They'll be back to being the kind of offense that changes games in a heartbeat. If not, last year's abnormal script might read like a cautionary tale instead of a fixable blip. Patrick Mahomes isn't one to sugarcoat it. 2024 was not the Chiefs' usual offensive blueprint. After an eye-popping 9-game win streak to open the season, Kansas City's attack turned noticeably more conservative, settling into shorter throws and fewer explosive plays. That approach carried them all the way to Super Bowl likes, only to have it exposed in the biggest game of the year. Now Mahomes has publicly vowed to course correct, promising a 2025 offense that looks more like the one that made defenses panic for years. Last year was abnormal, Mahomes told ESPN. We definitely want to push the ball down the field and push the ball into tighter windows this year. That's not empty talk. The underlying numbers from 2024 back up the diagnosis. Mahomes averaged just 6.8 yards per attempt, a career low, along with career lows in yards per game, yards per completion, and adjusted net yards per attempt. Even his longest pass topped out at only 54 yards, the shortest since his rookie season. Those are not small blips. They're signs the offense was throttled down. Why did that happen? A combination of factors. Injuries, most notably limiting the availability and explosiveness of veteran weapons, an offensive line that was inconsistent at times, and schematic choices that favored risk management over vertical aggression. The result was a lot of valuable, efficient football that nonetheless lacked the vertical jolt opposing defenses must respect. That conservative profile kept drives alive and wins accumulating, but it also left Kansas City vulnerable to a defense willing and able to get pressure and take away the intermediate game. In the Super Bowl, the Eagles did just that, and the Chiefs paid the price. Mahomes' pledge to push the ball into tighter windows signals an intent to reintroduce the kind of high-difficulty, high-reward throws that have long defined his playmaking. That's not about throwing reckless deep balls. It's about taking calculated shots, expanding route concepts, and getting receivers into positions where contested catches and yard-after-catch opportunities become part of the team's identity again. Put simply, the Chiefs need to be a threat to score quickly just as often as they are a threat to methodically march downfield. Execution will hinge on several moving parts. First, health. Keeping core playmakers on the field matters more than ever. Second, protection. The offensive line has to give Mahomes time to let routes develop and to take those tight window shots. Third, schematic balance. Andy Reid and staff must design concepts that put defenders in conflict, forcing them to respect both the screen game and the deep ball on the same series. Finally, Mahomes himself must blend his elite improvisational skill with disciplined pocket decision-making. He's the rare player who can do both. Fans and analysts will watch training camp and the early season game plans for proof. If Kansas City can reintroduce meaningful vertical elements without sacrificing efficiency, if they strike that thin line between aggressive and prudent, the Chiefs could look closer to their dominant selves. Mahomes' comments are a clear signal. Complacency isn't an option, and the team's identity will be sharpened in 2025. The blueprint is there. Now it's time to see if they can rebuild it into the kind of offense that once again forces opponents to fear every snap.